Go. Cool. Okay, this is Synthesis 101 using NI Massive. I had a request today from my cousin to show him exactly how NI Massive works, how every knob works, how to use the filters, envelopes, oscillators, everything. And I thought, well, you really need to know about synthesis basics to know how to use any synth. So we're going to cover synthesis basics using Native Instruments Massive. How we're going to do that, I'm going to tell you about a basic signal flow for any subtractive synthesizer, which Native Instruments Massive is. I'll talk about the signal flow within Massive and how you can change the routings around. I'll go over every section in as much detail as I can. After that, we'll start talking about modulation and the way you can change sounds when you get there. But for now, I'll change this so it should be a bit more clearer for you. It should be easier to see. I'll talk about the signal flow within Massive. You've watched me on there before, though. I'll go over every section. So, signal flow of any subtractive synthesizer starts always with your oscillators. These are in basic form, they are your sound generators. These are what you're going to use to make your sound before it does anything else. So straight away, if we turn everything else off, if oscillator 1 is on with the amp on, you're going to hear a sound. At the minute, it's on one of the basic wavetables, which is just square saw wave. Turn it all the way to the right, square to the left, saw to the right. Pure saw wave. Okay, in Massive you have 3 oscillators that you can stack on top of each other. We're just going to use one for now. I'll talk about all the functions that you got with inside each oscillator. You can stack them up, detune them. We can go through all that later on. So yeah, an oscillator, main tool for generating sound. Massive is slightly different to basic subtractive synthesizers in the way that it has wavetables rather than just producing one waveform at a time. What a wavetable is, it's exactly what you would imagine it to be. Imagine a load of waveforms laid flat on a table, and you can sweep across the table from left to right using the wavetable position knob. So when you choose some of these basic ones, especially these first 4 at the top, these are how you're going to get your basic waveforms if you just want to use your basic waveforms like square, saw, smooth, triangle and sine wave. So yeah, if we use square saw 1, this wavetable position changes it between the saw wave on the right and a square wave on the left. So a square wave, you can hear it from that hollow sound that you get with a square wave. If I sweep it to the right, let me put the sustain level on full. If I sweep it to the right, it's going to change from a square wave to a saw wave. You can hear the brighter harmonics of the saw wave. If you have the wavetable position dead center, it's a mix between the 2 waveforms. So yeah, you sweep in the wavetable, you sweep in between the waves that are in the wavetable. So square wave on the left, saw wave on the right. This intensity button we'll go over in a bit. We'll talk about some of the other wavetables first. So yeah, you've got your basic wavetables. The VA stands for virtual analog. You've got pulse to source sync. You've got a pulse wave on the left. When you have a pulse wave, if you have a pulse width all the way to the right, all the way to the left, you ain't going to hear it. We'll talk about that later on. Yeah, pulse wave on the left. Saw to the right, and you can change the pulse width, which is the distance between the peaks and the trough. It's easier to hear with a pulse. Closer to the left you go, the more thinner the square is. On silence, it's like the Q pulse, and when it's dead center, you're on a perfect square wave. right, it bends it the other way. How you get those classic sync sounds, pulse width sync sounds, is you'll apply an envelope to this. Or an LFO. We'll talk about that later on as well. So yeah, the virtual analog waveforms are based on virtual old analog synths. You've got a pulse to saw and a pulse to saw pulse width mod and a pulse to saw pulse width sync. Now this it's like pulse width, but it creates a duplicate of the waveform and then squashes it together, so you're increasing the frequency, if you like. Put it on a saw wave. Used a lot still today, the old sync sounds are. So yeah, we'll go over some of the other ones. The basic waveforms, as I say, saw to square, you've got a square on the left, saw on the right. Smooth square, sine square, this is how you get a sine wave. All the way to the left is a sine wave, all the way to the right is a square. You're going to be using this mainly for basses, pitched down heavily. So yeah, some of the other wavetables. Once you get past polysaw 1 and polysaw 2, you start to get some really interesting wavetables. These are now not just 2 waveforms with 1 on either side. You've got multiple waveforms, sometimes dozens. Rough Math 3 is a real complex one. As I sweep this wavetable, you're going to hear it changing drastically. There's probably 4 or 5 on that one actually. Let's pick a more one further on. Scrapyard. This is a really common one that people use for drum and bass and dubstep. I'll pitch it down, you're going to see why straight away. So you get the gist of the basic wavetables now. A load of waveforms laying on a table. The wave position sweeps between these waveforms. I mean, sometimes you don't always have to modulate this so you get that moving sound. Sometimes you can be playing with a wavetable and you just find a sweet spot with a part of the wavetable that you like. See, that sounds quite organy at that position. If we go right the way to the left, a lot more bell-like, a lot more siney. So yeah, it's going to take you years and years to months and months probably to get to know all these wavetables. To the left you go, the more thinner the square is on silence, it's like the Q pulse. What's up? And when it's dead center, you're on a perfect square wave. There's a door binding. This mummy's just getting some nail products or something. So yeah, it's going to take you ages to get used to all these different wavetables and stuff like that. Which ones sound like what? I mean, there's no right nor reason to which one you should use. You're just going to get used to it over time. We'll talk about that later on as well. What am I hearing? So, yeah, why can I hear the virtual analog waveforms are based myself on in the background? Old analog synths. You've got pulse to saw and a pulse to saw pulse width mod. Because I've got this fucker playing. Now this. Sorry about that. So yeah, we've got the wavetables out of the way. That's what a wavetable is. A load of waves laid on a table. You sweep between them with this wavetable position. You can modulate that later on with envelopes, so you can do it slowly, or LFOs, or any of the other modulation sources that we've got later on. So also in the oscillator section, you've got this pitch box. This first knob is your semitones, so your coarse pitch. Obviously 12 semitones to an octave. If you hold down the Alt key on your keyboard and then drag it up, it does it in full octaves. Easier than trying to navigate and trying to zip through here and trying to land it on exact octaves every time. Your next box is centered tones, so cents of a tone. So you've got 100 cents in a semitone. So down to 100 is minus a semitone, up to 100 is plus a semitone. Everything is modulatable with inside massive. We'll get onto that later on. You've got two boxes here so you can modulate the pitch. So yeah, you got your main amp dial. This right one is just the volume. The volume of each oscillator has its each individual amount. Okay, so this intensity box, these are like warp modes. This is going to do stuff to the waveform. Let me load in just a basic saw wave. This is just like a filter, the Spectrum one. That's the easiest way to describe it. It's like a tone control. All the way to the left is like closing a low pass filter off. All the way to the right is like it right open. Right, bend plus, it's going to take the peaks and troughs of the waveform, like in a sine wave, and it's going to crush it to one side, so it's going to give it a higher pitching sound. You're not really going to hear it on a saw wave so much. Bend plus and negative, it pushes it both ways. In the centre, it's exactly the same sound. Brighter to the right. Thinner to the left. Formant. This changes the... I'm never going to be able to describe formant to you today. That's an entirely new episode on its own. All you need to know is that the left, again, it's deeper. It's going to make the sound deeper. To the right, it's going to make it sound a lot brighter. It adds more nasally, like tonal qualities, like the formants in your mouth and stuff. I mean... Again, we'll get onto the format later on. That's another thing on it, totally on its own. So yeah, that is basic architecture of each oscillator. Pitch control, wavetable position on your selected wavetable. You've got this drop-down menu to choose any one you want. Intensity, which is your warp mode, and that master volume. So you've got three, all identical, all exactly the same. You click this little blue button to turn them on. If you want three, you can have all three on the same waveform. Have them octaves apart, give you a real thick sound. Yep, really easy to get a real thick sound with massive because you've got three oscillators straight away. So yeah, this button here, this is your routing to which filter you want it to go to. You can choose whether you want it to go all the way to filter 1, which is at the top, or all the way to filter 2, which is the bottom, or send an equal amount of the signal to both filters. For the signal to be passed into a filter at all, the filter needs to be turned on. If the filter is not turned on, the signal bypasses the filters and goes straight into the effects section, which you will see in the routing section. Oscillators. Insert effects which are not turned on. You can change the position of these, so it goes oscillators, into the filters, into the effects, and then out to the master. Left to right, oscillators, filter, effects, and out through the amp. Real straightforward. So yeah, let's say we wanted to send oscillator 1 to filter 1 only. Push it to filter 1, turn the filter on, choose the type of filter. Turn the other ones off. Let's choose something we can hear. Now all the signal is passing straight into filter 1 and then going into the effects section. Okay, before we go on to the filter section, we should talk about the modulation. Oh, you've got another oscillator actually. You've got a separate oscillator besides these three oscillators, which is the noise oscillator. This does exactly what it says. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different types of noise that you can generate. Same thing with the routing, you can route it to filter 1 or 2. We'll turn the filter off so you can hear them in its purest form. So yeah, bright white noise, this is going to be the most common to everybody. Amp on full. The colour is, it's almost like putting a low pass filter on again. To the left. It's like doing a low pass filter. Yeah, you got all these different sorts. You've got a bright noise, brown noise, it's a lot deeper, tape hiss. They're all very, very similar. Metallic. It's real nice to put on percussive hits, this one. Get some scratching effects if you want to modulate it later on. So yeah, metal, then we have amp noise. Some of these are quite percussive. Paper. Like somebody scrunching paper. I don't really use many of these. I generally just use the bright white and that. AC power. Take it this is emulating like the humming of a circuit or something. Water pipes. None of them are pitch controlled really. Colour is the same thing. Applies a low pass filter. AC power. Some of these metallic ones are really, really nice to add a zing to pad and stuff. Murmur. That's a sample of people chatting, I think. Good for making some real freaky shit. Aluminium. A lot of static. So yeah, along with your three oscillators, which are wavetable controlled, you have a basic noise oscillator. Amp volume again. Colour is like the tone of it. To the right is bright, to the left is dull. We then have a feedback source. What this does is it takes the feedback, it takes the output of the signal and then brings it back in at a certain point in time. You can have the overall output from the master and then bring it back in before the effects again. This is just a form of distortion really. Let's bring an oscillator in. Need to turn the filter on. So you're not really going to hear it until we apply any effects or anything. If you do it after the filters, it's like overdrive almost. It's driving the signal back in and then applying more shit to it, which makes it louder and a bit more distorted. It's like you would expect a feedback to do. As anything, there are sweet spots. Feedback, real basic. We surely don't need to go over that much anymore. Okay, we're going to take the signal now into the filters. So everybody knows what a filter are. I hope you do. You're going to use them inside your DAW day in, day out. These are no different. You've got the full selection. A low pass 4 is a steeper curve than a low pass 2. You can hear that straight away. Low pass 2 letting more frequencies by. It's the pole. Yeah, hard to explain really. A low pass 4 is a lot steeper curve, so it's cutting stuff off at a more steeper frequency range. A low pass 4 is steeper than a low pass 2. You've got two high passes. You've got an all pass. Which is like both filters in one, which is really useless. A double notch is exactly what it said. You've got two notches coming down. This is going to be used if you want to modulate it to make some phasing sounds. You normally pick a certain frequency range and sweep this with an LFO really slowly. Adds movement to any sound. Band pass, exactly what you expect a band pass to be. Picks a certain band and only lets those frequencies through. Band reject is like a single notch. Not as audible as the double notch. Scream, this is accentuating certain frequencies. You crank the resonance round. I take it it's just like increasing the frequency at certain points. That's why it's such a resonant sound. Without any resonance, you can't hear it having any effect. Daft, I'm not too sure what that is. Comb is exactly what you would think. It's a series of notches, a lot of notches running through. You get some real but drastic phasing effects if you modulate this. Good for effects, this is if you modulate it with an envelope. When you're doing risers and stuff. Acid is an acid filter. Let's pitch it down one octave, you're going to hear that. Most people would apply an envelope to this. I'll talk about envelopes later on, but a real snappy envelope. Give you that classic acidy sort of feel. That squelchy sound. Yeah, so that's the filters. You not only have one filter within Nature Instruments Massive, you have two. You can just use one if you want. If that's the case, you want to make sure that you're routing every oscillator to that filter via this slider here, and then make sure that this mix knob is routed to filter 1 as well. This is the volume of the filter. If you've got an oscillator routed to the filter, like you have here, solely to filter 1, if you have the volume down, you're not going to hear nothing. You need to turn the volume of the filter up to hear the signal coming out the far side. Real straight, basic stuff this is. And as I say, this is a mix knob coming out the other end. This is really for when you have it in serial or parallel mode. Okay, say we wanted another filter then. We've got that acidy filter on there. Say we wanted a comb filter on filter 2. We've got them all routed into filter 1, and it's in serial mode, which means filter 1 is then going into filter 2 and out. But if we have the mix all the way to filter 1, you're not going to hear it. We bring it down. Series, I should have explained that a little bit better. When they're in series, it means one after the other, series or serial. It always goes filter 1 to filter 2. It says at the top here, you see this little arrow, to filter 2. That means the signal that is going into filter 1 is then going to be passed and adapted by filter 2 before it comes out. So yeah, serial, into filter 1 then into filter 2. If you only want to hear the signal coming out of filter 2, which you're going to do generally if you're in serial mode, then you want to make sure the mix is on the bottom. So the signal, the oscillator, is routed to filter 1. It's going into filter 1. We've got it in series mode, so it's going into filter 2, and then the mix is only out of filter 2. So we're hearing it go into filter 1, filter 2, and then out. Being affected by both filters, one after the other. If you put it in parallel mode, you're generally going to want the mix dead center. The signal is going to be applied. The signal goes into each oscillators individually and then out the end mixed to this center point. So because we've only got this routed to filter 1 at the minute, you're only hearing it go into filter 1 and then out. If we send part of this signal to both filters, you can start to hear the effect of both filters as well. This is different to serial mode because each filter is receiving the audio from the oscillators individually. So it's getting an equal amount of amp going into each filter if you have it dead center, and then an equal amount going out because we've got the mix dead center. Why you'd want it in parallel mode, another way to do is say you want to send 2 different oscillators to 2 different filters. So say we want to send this square wave to filter 1, we'll have it routed to filter 1. And we want to send this saw wave at the top to filter 2, we'll have it routed to filter 2. So you can, it's a bit complicated to get your head around straight away, but the routing of the oscillators into the filter then determines how you're going to want this mix slider out the other end. If you're in serial and you're using both filters, you're always going to want it at the bottom. So the filter flows into 1, 2, then out. If you're running it parallel, if you want different oscillators to be doing different things by different filters, you want to make sure that both the volumes of the filters are on full, and then you want the mix dead center. Drastic differences. You're going to get a lot of different sounds by routing things differently into the filters. I hope I explained that okay. I'll probably do a section on the filter routing on its own later on. But once you've made your sounds with your oscillators and your wavetables and your noise source, they then go into the filter. Before it does that, you've got a modulation oscillator. This does exactly what it says. It can modulate the oscillators before it goes into the filter section. What it is, this is just a sine wave, and it's what's the word I'm looking for? It is moving in the audio range, which it means it is not a low frequency oscillator. It's basically a sine wave oscillator moving at the same speeds as what the rest of these oscillators are, but it doesn't actually create any sound. You're just using the sine wave shape to modulate different parameters within the oscillators. You can use it you can set the pitch of it as well. You can use it to do a ring mod. If we do ring mod of oscillator 1, we solo oscillator 1, turn all the filters off and everything else we've got going on. Just a pure sine wave. Ring modulation is amplitude modulation. You want to think of it like that. It uses the peaks and the troughs of the sine wave, which this modulation oscillator is making, to turn the amp on and off very fast. Gives everything a gritty sort of edge. The higher you go, the faster it's going, the faster it's turning on and off. You're not going to really hear it. If we pitch it down 2 octaves, you can hear what the sine wave is doing.